Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are here to do my predictions video for the Republic of Consciousness Prize, US and Canada edition. And I'm really excited. This was such a fun video for me to put together last year and such a challenging video to try and put together. But I'm trying to bring some of the fun book prize magic that seems to revolve around things like the Booker Prize or the Women's Prize or even the National Book Award, and bring that to this lovely prize that celebrates small independent publishers. So I am going to be making 10 predictions here today because there will be 10 books that are announced on the long list. The long list will come out tomorrow as of when I'm filming this. I'm filming it on January 14th, but the prize long list is going to be announced on January 15th at 8 p.m., which is when this video will actually pop up earlier in the day. Fingers crossed that I get something right. So let me tell you a little bit about the prize first, and then we're gonna go into my predictions. And then at the end of the video, I'm gonna talk a little bit about my experience attempting to read the list last year and how that went, and then what my plans are for this year reading the list. Quickly, a little bit about the prize if you're new to it. This prize originally started in the UK. Again, it's to celebrate small independent publishers, which I absolutely love. And I'm so happy that there's a prize for this. A couple of years ago now, the prize came over to North America, and now we have a US and Canada version of it. So here is the eligibility criteria that the books have to meet. So the small press can't have a net revenue of more than $750,000 in a given year. I went into kind of a deep dive about this last year trying to research publishers. This information is surprisingly hard to find for certain presses, but I've made somewhat of an attempt. And then the press needs to be its own independent financial body. So it cannot be partially or wholly owned by another business. The one exception that they make for this is if a publisher is also linked to a bookstore, then that is okay. This prize is also specifically for fiction, so it needs to be a novel or a short story collection that's done by a single author. The book must be published within the calendar year that the prize is for, so we're looking at 2024 publications here. And similar to a lot of other prizes, a publisher can only submit one book for the prize. So part of this is trying to figure out what each publisher might want to submit as their best chance at winning this prize. So that's also a fun thing to try and figure out. I do wish, like so many other prizes, that they would announce the full list of nominees after the fact so we can have a sense of what even got submitted. I'm sure there are some complications with doing that, but that's just my wishful thinking. The last piece of eligibility that I'll go over really quickly before we move along is that the small press or publisher does need to be, it says, established in the US or Canada. Now, last year, I did end up getting some clarification about this because I was confused why certain publishers that were based in the UK, for example, ended up being nominated. And it appears that established just means that the book needs to be widely accessible in the US and Canada. So that's what we're going with today. I've made a couple adjustments with that information in mind. So let's go ahead and talk about some predictions. Last year, I did get one prediction right. That was the birthday party. And honestly, it was truly a miracle that I got even one because there are a lot of small publishers and it is kind of hard to make a decision on which one you think they might submit and what the judges might be looking for. The judges this year for the prize are mostly comprised of booksellers, although there are a few authors on there as well. And this prize definitely is drawn to eccentric literature. I know lots of prizes like to say that they are choosing experimental, groundbreaking stuff, and they really don't do it like the Republic of Consciousness Prize does it. And we'll get into a little bit more of that discussion when I talk about my reading experience last year, but they really go hard on experimental fiction. So I've tried to keep that in mind as well. With my predictions, I have a few categories for them. My first category is books that I know were nominated. So I received the newsletter for this prize, and throughout the year, they have sent us a couple of emails indicating some of the books that have been nominated for it. So I have made a few of my selections from those because I know they've been nominated. They at least have a shot of showing up on the long list. So there have been 4 emails that have contained books that the judges are reading through. And I have taken 1 book from the first 3 emails. So there's 3 books total from this category, and they're just the ones that I'm most interested in. That was really the criteria for me picking them. So the first one of these is The Lodger by Holly Presser. This came out from Assembly Press. It was published in the beginning of the year in February. And in this book, we're following our main character who arrives back in her hometown to, it says, keep an eye on her mother, who's living in a very precarious subletting position. And there is the looming idea that the landlord could come at any time and evict them. But we're also getting these flashbacks for our main character of the rented room that she just left that's now occupied by a new lodger, which I think references back to the title, that she's never met, but she is now becoming fascinated with. This is a debut novel, and it says it's a story about what it means to live and love within and outside of family structures. So really interested in this. I'm hoping it's also going to have some commentary on housing and the housing crisis and all those types of things. So this is my first pick from the I know it's been nominated category. Next up, we have Like a Sky Inside by Jakuta Alikavazovic, translated by Daniel Levin Becker. This one was published by Fern Books. And in this novel, we're following our protagonist in March of 2020 as she's spending the night at the Louvre, and she's thinking back to memories with her father, who used to talk about stealing the Mona Lisa. And I do think there's gonna be a theft element to this. The bottom of the blurb says, in a way, we could go so far as to say that art, what we call art, is made less to be seen than to be stolen. So very intrigued about this one. Based on the blurb, it does sound like it's going to be a very kind of like heady intellectual novel and potentially not a ton of plot for a kind of heist book in a way, but we shall see. So this is Like a Sky Inside. And then the last book in this category of selections that I know have been nominated is To and Fro. This is by Leah Hager Cohen, and it was published by Bellevue Literary Press. This one we're following Annie, who it says is journeying a great distance with a stolen kitten. Not really sure where that's going to come in, but this book is all about childhood. So Annie is searching for her friend Anna May, and this book is told in dual perspectives. The book actually calls them 2 mirrored narratives that are about the wonders and mysteries of childhood, and it is exploring identity, spirituality, and community. I do think this idea of like the dual POV could be interesting for the judges. It seems like maybe there's something speculative happening because there is the word parable mentioned in this blurb. So we shall see. I think this could be a funky one, and that could be a really big hit for the judges. So that is To and Fro. Now we're moving into the next kind of category of predictions, and these are my heavy hitters, right? So these are books from small independent publishers that have done really well this year, and I think that the publisher would want to submit these, but I almost think they might be too popular for this prize. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. but we're gonna go with it. There are 2 books in this category. The first one is Not a River by Selva Almada, translated by Annie McDermott, and came out from Charco Press. This got a lot of buzz when it was up for the International Booker this past year, and I'm choosing it for what I think Charco Press would nominate. This one we're following 2 friends, Enero and El Negro, who take Tilo, the teenage son of their recently deceased friend, out fishing at a river. And this story is talking about the love between friends, the love of a mother for her daughters, and the love of islanders for their river. So I think this is gonna have hopefully some beautiful nature writing. And again, it's done really well this year. I think there's been a lot of good critical acclaim for it. And I just can't imagine Charco Press not submitting this as their pick. But again, I'm worried it might be too popular and conventional for this prize, although I have not read it, so I can't say that for sure. But I'm gonna go with this one. So this is Not a River as the Charco Press pick. And then the other big release that I'm gonna go with is Taiwan Travelogue by Yang Shuang-zi, translated by Lin King. And this one won the National Book Award in Translated Fiction this year, and it came out from Graywolf Press. So again, I'm assuming that Graywolf Press is going to submit this as their pick. This one is a love story between 2 women that also explores language and history and power. This takes place in 1938, and we're following a young novelist who has sailed from Japan to Taiwan, and she just really wants to experience like an authentic version of life there. She hires an interpreter who is, I think, our other woman in this love story, and they start traveling around together, trying to experience Taiwan to its fullest. And I think there is an emerging love story between them. So that is my next pick, Taiwan Travelogue. And for my last 5 picks, these are sort of wishful thinking in a way. So books that I'm very interested in, and I hope they make their way to this prize. I think most of these are kind of like quirky, avant-garde enough to show up on the list. And we've got a mix of some publishers that have been nominated before and some ones that have not yet been nominated, and I'm hoping they will finally show up on the list. So first up in this wishful thinking category is Off-White by Astrid Roemer, and it's translated by Lucy Scott and David McKay. This one came out from Two Lines Press, and it takes place in 1966 on the Caribbean coast of South America. And this book is showing the long effects of colonialism in this region. We're following Grandma B, who is the matriarch of her family, but she is also dying. She's thinking back to her past and some of the family members that she's lost. She is especially concerned about one of her favorite granddaughters, Helly, who was sent away long ago because she had an affair with her white teacher. And she's starting to grapple with that decision and why they made it at the time. And I think this is talking about like, what is family? What does like having a legacy mean? What does having a heritage mean between family members who may not have even met each other before? I think this just has such a richness that it's describing in the blurb. It also helps that I own this book, even though I have not read it yet. So again, some wishful thinking, but I do think this is an author that is very, very well loved, and I could see this being the pick from Two Lines Press. I did waffle between this or Woodworm getting submitted, but ultimately I decided that this felt like it would be a slightly better pick for the judges. So we'll see if that ends up paying off for me or not. All right, my number 7 pick is Between This World and the Next by Praveen Herat. This was published by Restless Books. This one I actually also do know got submitted. So maybe it should have been in the previous category, although it wasn't featured in one of the emails. I just know it got submitted. This is another book that is on my anticipated reading list from last year, and it says it's a literary thriller that is exploring power, identity, unconditional love, and the question of how far we'll go to uncover the truth. This is another one where I think it might be a dual POV, but we have a British war photographer and a young Cambodian woman who meet one night and I think have like a powerful experience together. I'm not sure what that is. The woman disappears and Joseph is trying to put together clues to figure out what happened to her. It's blurring the boundaries between good and evil, and it invites readers to re-examine complicity and the consequences of looking the other way. Ugh, sounds so good. And I'm really, again, hoping this is on there because I want to read it. So this would just give me an extra push to read it. Okay, number 8, we have The Propagandist by Cecile Desprairies. Not quite sure, I'm bad at French. Translated from the French by Natasha, who is a translator I really love. This one came out from New Vessel Press. And this one, I think we have 2 timelines going on. So we're following a young girl who attends gatherings that are regularly organized by her mother. And the women are talking about gossip and secrets, but they also talk about what's going on during World War II. Then I think we get a future timeline where that girl is grown up into a woman and she is a historian writing an autobiographical novel about her own family, and she's trying to understand if her family betrayed their Jewish neighbors and friends and if they collaborated with the Nazis during the occupation in France. Again, this kind of feels like a prizey book, centers in author. I feel like prizes just love things about authors. And it is another book that I've heard really good things about. It's a pretty popular release from New Vessel Press from last year. And I think this at least has a shot of being nominated. So that's The Propagandist. Next up, we have another book I own and some more wishful thinking, of course, and that is Living Things by Munik Hachemi. This one came out from Coach House Books and is translated by Julia Sanches, I should say. And this one calls itself an eco thriller. It also says that it's very fever dream-like, it's slim, and it is a debut. And I did intentionally try to put a couple of debuts on this list. We follow 4 recent graduates who travel from Madrid to the south of France to try and do the grape harvest because they need money. But things don't go as they planned and they end up working at an industrial chicken farm, and they're living in a campground nearby. It says that there's a sense of menace that starts to take hold. We're talking about themes of precarious employment, capitalism, immigration, and the mass production of living things. I think this sounds phenomenal. I am assuming there's going to be some horror elements, like some gore in this. I meant to read it last year around Halloween in October, but I didn't quite get to it, so I really do want to read it soon. And if it was on this list, again, another good excuse for me to read it. So that is Living Things. And lastly, we have a book that I recently hauled, and that is Short War by Lily Meyer. This was published by Deep Vellum, again, a press that I love. They have not been on the list before, and I'm really hoping they will be on the list this year. This book is showing us 3 generations of a family. We have a diplomat who is placed in Chile, who is suspected to be in the CIA. Then we have his son, Gabriel, who meets a young girl, Caro, and they start to fall in love. And Gabriel is kind of growing up as an expat there, but eventually he gets sent back to the US. And we see the 3rd generation in his daughter, Nina, who is currently writing her dissertation, and I think her life is kind of a mess, and she goes back to Chile to do some research for her dissertation, but also mostly to just kind of get away and try and clear her head because she is struggling with writer's block. So we get these 3 generations, and I think this book is really talking about power and privilege and guilt and how we reckon with the past. I know that this book is a highly political novel. Again, I think it could be a really interesting pick for this prize. I will say, not a huge release from Deep Vellum this year. I think they had other stuff that did better, but I think this one just sounds like it could be a really good fit for this prize. I think the themes, the multi-generational viewpoint, again, add a lot of richness, and I'm hoping we will see it here. So those are my 10 picks for this prize. Again, it will truly be a miracle if I get anything, but I'm hoping for at least one again. I got one last year, so I think it's realistic for me to get one again this year. And I do know a couple of the ones that have been nominated, so hopefully that gives me a little extra help. Getting two would truly be out of this world crazy, so we shall see. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience attempting to read this prize last year, and truly, it was a ride. So last year, I think I kind of had plans to try and read the shortlist. I did ultimately read at least part of 4 of the books. So I started out reading The Lodgeman, or Lodgeman, does have the, I can't remember. That was the book that ended up winning, which is great because I read the book that won. I overall really enjoyed that book, but I did have a couple problems with it. But the main issue while I was reading it is that book is so bleak, you cannot even believe, like, oh my God, that book crushed my soul. I was unwell after I finished that book. So I started off with that one. But again, I will say a quality book. I'm not upset that it won. It just was slowly killing me inside to read it. But then I went over to Two Sherpas, and this book I did not like. It's supposed to be this take on kind of like a plotless novel. It follows one scene of this mountaineer who has employed these 2 Sherpas, and there is an accident and one of the Sherpas kind of falls off of a cliff, and they're trying to figure out if he's dead or what's going on. But my issue with this book is I don't think it accomplishes what it sets out to do, because we do end up getting a lot of plot. It's just not about that moment. We get all of these flashbacks about the mountaineer's life, about the Sherpa's life, and that's really where all the plot lies. So it's definitely not just about this one scene. Like, can I write a book about just this one scene? Like, no, you cannot, because there are a bunch of other scenes in the book. They're just flashbacks. So that slightly annoyed me, as you can maybe tell with my tone. And then I also didn't like the flashbacks. I thought it tried to shoehorn a bunch of Shakespeare in it, which I really hate when books do. If you're gonna do that, you need to integrate it well and feel like it's not just like plopped in, like, oh, take the meaning from this Shakespeare play, apply it to the book that you're reading. I don't like that. It really bothers me, and I think it's overdone. And then there was also kind of like this weird, I would say icky stuff with the mountaineer and some previous relationship that he had. It was all just very bizarre, and I did not like it. Honestly, straight to jail. This book can go straight to jail. I did not like it and was shocked that it ended up on the short list. Again, it was very experimental, and I think that might be what got it there, but no, not for me. Then I started reading The Box, and at this point, I'm deceased, because The Box is very experimental. I mean, like, I have never read a book like this before. And the sad part of this is that I was enjoying The Box, but because of the like insanely bleak reading of The Lodgeman, because I really disliked Two Sherpas, by the time I got to this, my brain was fried, and I was like, you know what, no more. I cannot do it. I think I got over 100 pages into The Box, and my brain just melted. It was not happening for me. The Box is told in parts, and each part, the style of prose shifts. In the first section, we're getting commentary about this box, this white box that has some type of pull. There's a lot of curiosity to it. People don't know what it is, but they are drawn and fixated by it. The sentence structure of the box is really interesting, because each kind of paragraph is mirrored. So you'll get like thought A, thought B, thought C, thought D, thought C, thought B, thought A. Whatever thoughts and ideas came up in the start of that section, you'll end with that section. And I thought that was fascinating. And once I got into the rhythm of that, my brain adapted to reading it. And then you switch sections, and it kind of changes it up all over again. And you have to retrain your brain to get into the new prose style, the experimental prose style that it's trying to do. Again, that book is really fascinating and I was overall enjoying it, but homie just could not hang anymore. So I stopped reading. I had also started The Birthday Party, which is a book I still own and I still want to read, but I just was like, my brain needs, I cannot go anymore. So that's my experience last year. So let's talk about what my plans are this year for the prize. I do definitely want to read at least some of the books, and I definitely want to read whatever wins. So I will commit to reading the winner. Obviously, I won't know what the winner is until it gets announced at the end of this prizes season. So I'm going to try to read 3 books at least leading up to the winner being announced. If I've already read the winner, I'll decide if I want to read more based on how those 3 books went. If I have not read the winner, then I will read the winner for sure as a 4th book, and then again decide if I want to read more from there. So I'm committing to 3 this year, potentially a 4th if I don't read the winner in advance. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if it's another crazy ride like last time and I feel like no thoughts, head empty, my world has just crumbled around me and I'm a shell of a human being, or if I really love them and find a bunch of new great books for me. The one other thing I want to mention is I'm really anticipating what publishers get nominated this year. I do think there was a surprising amount of overlap in the publishers that were represented from its inaugural year to last year. And I'm hoping there's a little bit more diversity in the presses this year. If we have a heavy amount of overlap from the last 2 years, I am going to be slightly disappointed. Again, there are so many small independent publishers in the US and Canada. Plus, they don't even technically need to be in the US and Canada if they just distribute widely here. So I would really like to see more variety, and I'm hoping that is the case. So let me know if you are interested in following this prize as well. Let me know what you think of my predictions. Do you think I have a shot? We'll see. And I'm really excited to get the long list out and create some reading plans from it. So here's hoping that one of these is correct, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.